Two countries just came out of one of the most dangerous escalations in recent years, and both of them are saying the same thing. We won. But here's the problem. Only one side can actually be right. And the answer doesn't come from Washington. It doesn't come from Tehran. It comes from a narrow strip of water, less than 40 kilometers wide. The Strait of Hormuz. Because whatever happens there doesn't stay local. It reaches fuel prices, global markets, and entire economies within days. So the real question is not what happened in the conflict. The question is this: who actually controls Hormuz right now? And the answer is far more uncomfortable than anyone is admitting. Before missiles, before aircraft carriers, before political speeches, there is a single choke point that quietly controls the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz. It is small in size, but enormous in impact. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through it every single day. That means every ship crossing this corridor is not just transport. It is global economic stability in motion. And here is the critical detail. There is no real alternative route at scale. If this passage is disrupted, there is no immediate replacement system. Prices don't adjust slowly. They spike. Supply chains don't slow down. They fracture. Airlines, industries, food imports, energy markets all feel the shock almost immediately. But Iran doesn't need to close the strait completely to trigger this effect. It only needs to make it uncertain, because uncertainty alone is enough for insurance costs to explode. And once shipping becomes too risky, the flow of oil may continue physically. But economically, it already begins to freeze. This is not traditional control. This is strategic pressure through instability. And it turns Hormuz into something unique in modern geopolitics, a place where no superpower has absolute control. To understand what is happening now, you need to go back before the headlines. In 2020, the Middle East began shifting quietly. Several Arab states normalized relations with Israel, backed by the United States. For Iran, this was not diplomacy. It was containment. And in response, Iran activated a long-developed regional network, what it calls the Axis of Resistance, a decentralized system of allied groups spread across Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. They don't act as one army. They act as pressure points. And slowly, the region began to destabilize in layers. Shipping routes were attacked. Commercial vessels were targeted. Trade corridors became unpredictable. Then came the Red Sea crisis. Global shipping costs surged, and military coalitions were formed to protect trade routes. But the attacks didn't stop, because the objective was never direct victory. It was sustained disruption. Then the conflict escalated further. A U.S. base in the region was hit, killing American personnel, and the response was immediate. Coordinated strikes across multiple countries. Dozens of targets were hit. But something unusual followed. Silence. No declared war. No escalation into full conflict. Just controlled retaliation and controlled restraint. And that is where the conflict changed shape. It stopped being about territory and became about perception. Who looks stronger without crossing the line? Then came the most direct escalation in years. Hundreds of drones and missiles launched from Iran toward Israel. A direct strike from Iranian territory. Not proxies, not intermediaries. Direct action. The world watched as interception systems activated across multiple countries. And the result was staggering. Most of the incoming threats were stopped. Actual damage was minimal. But the political outcome was the opposite of clarity. Because both sides declared victory. Israel said its defense systems worked. The United States said coordination was successful. Iran said it proved it could strike directly. And suddenly, the same event produced three different realities, and none of them could be fully dismissed. That is where the real question emerged. If everyone wins, who actually lost control? While the world focused on missiles, the most important pressure point remained unchanged: the Strait of Hormuz, because unlike airstrikes or proxy wars, Hormuz does not require escalation to create global impact. It only requires risk perception. Iran understands this better than most observers assume. It does not need naval superiority. It does not need to defeat the United States. It only needs to maintain credible disruption capability, enough to make commercial shipping fragile. And history has already shown this effect. When tensions rise in the region, insurance premiums for shipping can rise dramatically within days. Not because ships are sinking, but because risk becomes unquantifiable. And when risk becomes unquantifiable, markets stop behaving rationally. So we return to the central question: who controls the Strait of Hormuz today? The answer is not simple, because control is split into two different realities. The United States and its allies control military dominance. They can protect shipping lanes, they can intercept attacks, and they can maintain open passage under pressure. In a conventional conflict, this would be decisive. But Hormuz is not a conventional battlefield, because military superiority does not eliminate disruption capability. And Iran represents the opposite form of power: not dominance, but denial. It cannot guarantee safety, but it can guarantee risk. And that alone changes strategic behavior. Now here is the critical paradox. If Iran fully blocks the strait, it damages its own economy. If the United States escalates too far, it risks regional collapse and wider war. So neither side can fully execute its extreme option. And what remains is something more unstable than control: mutual constraint. A system where each side has power, but not enough freedom to use it without consequence. And that creates a strange outcome. The Strait of Hormuz remains open, not because it is secure, but because it is too dangerous for either side to fully test its limits. And there is another layer most analysis misses. The world is no longer controlled by a single strategic bloc. China now plays a major role in regional energy flows. Iranian oil continues to reach Asian markets. Diplomatic alignments are shifting. And for the first time in decades, major agreements in the region have been mediated outside Western influence. At the same time, Russia and Iran have increased military and technological cooperation. This creates overlapping dependencies: energy, arms, trade, and political protection. Which means Hormuz is no longer just a US-Iran equation. It is part of a multipolar system, where multiple external powers absorb the consequences of escalation. And that makes the situation less stable, not more. There are only three possible paths forward. The first is controlled tension. No full war, no full peace, just continuous pressure, proxy conflicts, and periodic escalation. The second is a limited agreement, focused on nuclear restrictions and sanctions relief. It reduces risk, but does not eliminate it. And the third is accidental escalation, a miscalculation, a single strike that crosses an invisible threshold. Because in regions like this, wars rarely start when planned. They start when someone assumes the other side will not respond. And that assumption is often wrong. So who controls the Strait of Hormuz? The answer is not power. It is not military strength. And it is not diplomacy. It is restraint. Because the moment restraint fails, control stops existing. And what replaces it is not victory. It is uncertainty at global scale. And that is why, even now, the strait remains open. not because the conflict is over, but because the next decision has not yet been made. And when it is made, the world will not have time to debate who was right, only who reacted first.